The Unspoken Truth. Chapter 1. The Whispering Walls. I never believed in ghost stories, yet here I was, alone in the middle of the night, with an eerie feeling that made my skin crawl and my heart race. It all started when I moved into a cozy little apartment on the third floor of an old building just outside campus. Everything about this place seemed perfect. Affordable rent, proximity to class, and a room flooded with sunlight during the day. But as dusk approached, a strange quiet took over. My neighbors kept to themselves, never venturing out unless absolutely necessary. The neighborhood was hushed, like they were waiting for something. Each night felt heavier than the last, each creak of wood beneath my feet unsettling in silence. The first few nights passed uneventfully. I'd settle in a bed after a long day of classes and research, drifting off to sleep almost instantly with the comforting hum of the refrigerator and distant traffic lulling me into oblivion. The second night was different. A gentle whisper brushed against my ears as I slumbered, sending shivers down my spine. Whispers. There were whispers coming from the walls. Soft, raspy voices that sounded like they belonged to an old woman sharing secrets with a close friend but didn't make any sense. Don't wake her, or it's waiting. In the dead of night, I sat bolt upright in bed, my room bathed in moonlight slicing through the drawn curtains. No one could be here. The apartment had been empty when I signed the lease. Neighbors never came up the stairs after 10 p.m. My racing mind urged me to ignore it as the wind outside howled through the vents, a plausible explanation for this unsettling phenomenon. But those whispers persisted, like an invisible confidant sharing tales of old tragedies and dark legends. The following night was no different. Each word whispered louder, more urgent. Run. They echoed from every corner of my home. I'd begun to suspect paranoia as the culprit, that perhaps I'm just hearing things. The truth is it wasn't just what I heard, but where they came from. From everywhere. Shadows seemed to dance across walls too, flickering like dark apparitions dancing in the dark. My sanity teetered as if a thin rope tied between reality and madness was fraying thread by thread. My best friend Emily would laugh at this tale if she knew. Even I didn't believe it anymore. A student of literature, not supernatural occurrences. In broad daylight, the apartment felt normal. Bookshelves lining walls, artwork, the faint scent of old leather. But now, something stirred between shadows and whispers that made me question everything. My room was haunted. The voices grew louder, demanding I leave. Leave while you can. That second night, they awakened me at 2 a.m., turning my world upside down with a chilling intensity one couldn't ignore any longer. When dawn broke, the silence returned, and the whispers receded to nothing but echoes of what could have been. My room was too quiet now. An unsettling calm settled over it, as if waiting for its next victim. I stared at the walls long after sunrise, my mind aching with dread. It was just my imagination running wild. It had to be. Yet each evening since that night, no matter how tired or awake, they returned. Always louder than before. They seemed to know when I was alone. I armed myself with a flashlight and recorder, hoping logic would chase the darkness away as the shadows grew bolder. One fateful night, in my determination to confront whatever this was, I set up my equipment, readying for dawn. Hours ticked by slowly. The wall behind me began its eerie chant, "Get out before." As I turned to face it, something darted at the edge of my vision. Dark shapes moving across the room, then vanished. The flashlight's beam danced along walls, revealing nothing but shadows cast from the flickering streetlight outside. I was losing it. My rational self begged for a logical explanation. Deep inside, I sensed an unseen entity watching me with calculating eyes. Chapter 2. The Shadow's Embrace. I decided to stay awake, armed and prepared, as the sun dipped behind the cityscape, casting long shadows within my apartment. The first whisper came, and I aimed a recorder at the wall where it seemed loudest. At midnight, they began again. "She'll be next," followed by an unearthly rattle. It sounded like footsteps in the hallway. I spun around to face those imaginary doors. There were no footsteps, though, just shadows on the ceiling moving with purposeless intent as if drawn to me. My heart thumped out a frantic rhythm while I clung to my flashlight, frozen between fascination and fear. A shadow darted into darkness when I turned to confront it, leaving behind a lingering sense of an inky presence that made hairs stand on end. The whispers intensified, urgent, pleading for escape from some unseen force. One morning's light revealed nothing out of the ordinary, just another restless night. Still, there was more than my ears playing tricks. Shadows danced at the edge of perception, always disappearing when I turned to face them. I spent an inordinate amount of time listening to the recordings, a futile attempt at rationalizing madness creeping over me. At 4 a.m., those shadows moved faster as if beckoning me to follow. I followed their lead. One darted into the far corner where my gaze caught it, but when turning, it vanished, leaving only darkness and the relentless whispers that had become my lifeblood. "Get out while you still can." I crept over, flashlight in hand, peering into an inky void. My eyes watered from the effort to make out any form when a faint shape materialized near the corner of my room. With a trembling breath, I advanced, my beam cutting through darkness like a knife. In the center stood a dark silhouette, barely 5 feet tall and faceless. It dissipated as I reached for it with shaking hands, leaving an unsettling chill behind. The second night's performance surpassed anything before it. Whispers, shadows, and that shape materializing again in the corner. Curiosity warred with fear. Maybe this was my chance to prove sanity or uncover a sinister secret. I crept toward it as it melted into thin air once more. A gust of frigid air brushed against my skin where there should have been only stale apartment air. My curiosity propelled me forward until I found myself face to face with the blackness, mouth agape, and pulse in my throat. The shadow swelled with every step closer, but never filled the space, a living entity. Inexplicably, it began moving alongside me, toward the door. With trembling hands, I reached for the handle and pushed it open. My flashlight revealed nothing outside but stairs leading up to an empty corridor, lit by a lone light bulb. Shadows clung to each step like sentient creatures as they ascended into the unknown. Chapter 3. The Final Revelation. Researching my apartment's past had become both an obsession and solace in this nightmare. I found it. Old records at the library. A woman named Evelyn vanished 30 years ago, gone from her life without a trace after strange events in the very flat where I resided now. Evelyn's case was unsolved for decades, her room left untouched. A local legend whispered of supernatural meddling. The similarities were too real to ignore, and that's when I saw it in the doorway. An apparition with faceless, gaunt features emerging from shadows. It beckoned me forward with dark eyes I'd never seen. Heart pounding, I approached until we touched shoulders. "Leave this place." Evelyn's voice echoed softly as she materialized into a woman in tattered clothes, her eyes pleading, the form of someone long buried and forgotten. In this moment, there was no choice but to follow her into the unknown. She led me up those stairs to the floor above, revealing another empty flat. There on the wall, Evelyn's face stared back at me from a faded photograph. The door opened, a scream caught in my throat as I faced decades of dust and a lifelong past. Evelyn's journal lay upon a dresser, the final entry talking of an unseen force that took everything beautiful before it consumed. It said I would be next if I stayed. In dawning light, my apartment room was restored to its familiar self. Shadows retreated from the wall as the door closed behind us. As I read on, Evelyn's haunting words spilled across the pages, her story echoing mine, whispers that drew her in like a moth. It had followed me here and now demanded the same from me, unless it was more than just an urban legend. There were stories of a haunted relic buried beneath this building, and I've been drawn to them unknowingly. The journal fell shut as Evelyn's spirit vanished into the wall. My time expired with it. I had one option: escape or face whatever lurked above ground, hoping reason would prevail if I faced whatever had taken her life all those years ago. On shaking legs, I descended. The door slammed shut behind me. A floor above was now a crypt. Evelyn's eyes and pleading smile stared up from a photograph on a dresser in an empty room where time froze. It was only then I felt a sudden chill. My gaze found it at the edge of perception, watching, waiting for the next to fall, my life echoing her own. In the silence that followed, they came from me. "Get out." The door closed behind me as Evelyn's voice reverberated through the floorboards like an eternal echo, a harbinger. My hands shook, holding my fate in them now. I broke into tears as I found myself outside, gasping beneath the open sky. Evelyn's spirit, her story, and their haunting words dissipated with the dawn. I'd left behind what took so many lives here, and the whispers too, leaving me in that silent room once more. I descended, journal still clutched to my chest, heart pounding out a funeral dirge. It ended as abruptly as it began. Evelyn gone just like her 30 years ago when nightmares had roots stronger than any human hand could ever hold. The world was quiet again except for my ragged breath and the soft click of the door behind me, sealing my fate with it forever. They would find me dead in this flat. I ran from what haunted us both until Evelyn's voice echoed one last time. "Get out."